Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with your ideal Mahler cycle. Not just the symphonies. I'm also including das Klagende Lied and the song cycles. And these are performances that will assemble for you a completely strong, marvelous, enjoyable series. It's not necessarily my favorites. I've done talks about every single symphony where I've come up with a single pick. But as you know, there are, especially in Mahler now, so many great performances of these symphonies that I can pick and choose and still come up with a series that I would be very, very, very happy to live with if there were no others out there, despite my personal preferences. And I have to say, there is no composer who I think is more suited to this approach than Mahler is, because, it's tempting to just stack up all of the Mahler cycles, of which nowadays there are so many of them, and try and pick the best one. But you would always be having, all of them have weak links, all of them. There's only one exception I can think of where that it is completely consistent from beginning to end, and pretty splendid, and that's Gary Bertini's on EMI. But the problem with Gary Bertini is that you may not be able to find it anymore, number one. And number two, there are other versions of all of the symphonies in the Bertini set that you might like better, or that I like better, even though I have total respect and admiration for what is, in by any standard, a magnificent achievement. So I would wind up saying, okay, here, the best overall cycle for consistency is Bertini's, but, where does that get you? You're not going to want to live with just that. So I'm doing it this way. Having talked about all of these works, singly, I now want to put the pieces together and give you as fine a Mahler cycle as I can. And as usual, I am only mentioning one conductor at a time. Every single work here that we're discussing will be conducted by a different person, and I challenge you to do the same thing. And the reason is because, honestly, Mahler is so popular now. There are so many recordings of this music out there. Just tons of it. It's everywhere, and everyone does it. It's ubiquitous. So we really ought to be able to put together a cycle that features that many different artists. About a dozen of them? That's not so many when you think about it. It really isn't. And the other thing that I've tried to do is make some selections that show you that there is still always the possibility of great performances coming along. Some of these are very recent. And, it's very tempting to just go through the two Leonard Bernstein cycles on disc, and then there's the video one, and just, put together a great Mahler cycle out of those. And you can. You really can. But Bernstein is only going to appear here once. That's it. And perhaps not in the place you think he's going to. I don't know. So I think that it says something about where we are in the tradition of Mahler performance, that you can assemble a fantastic list of all of the major works and not have to necessarily depend on only the famous names. And I remember vividly, and I know a lot of you will too, that back in the day when what choice did we have back in the 70s? The late 60s and the 70s, for Mahler symphonies, there were some singleton versions. There were some old Bruno Walters flying around, right? But essentially what you had was you had Bernstein's Sony. You had Kubelik on DG, if you could find it. You had Schulte was in the works. Some of his earlier ones with the LSO were horrible. There was Haitink, but Philips was that was an independent label that was from Holland that you couldn't always find in the United States. In Europe, I suppose it was much easier. But remember how wonderful it was to see the Haitink cycle, because they came in those fabulous deluxe boxes with beautifully pressed discs and styrofoam backing on both sides. It was such a deluxe presentation. Philips was such a class act. They really were. And the American labels were so crappy by comparison comparison. You got paper sleeves. Remember RCA Dynawarp? Grooves and things that was like watching. It was like watching the ocean during a tidal wave when you dropped your needle on the disc. And even Decca, which was London in the U.S., they all had grotty pressings and cheap vinyl. And then you got these Philips things, and it was like, whoa, this is serious, right? But you couldn't always find them, and they only came along later. And so, we were so limited in choice. But the advantage to being limited in choice was that everybody knew the same performances. So you could actually have a meaningful conversation about them in detail, about comparing one performance to the next. All of that's impossible now. Just impossible. Nobody can wrap their brains around everything that's been released about every single performance, and you can't remember everything about every single performance. It's really a challenge. And so in putting together this cycle, I want you to know, what some of the greatest performances are of all of the symphonies and other works, and also, both traditionally and some newcomers, but also get a sense of who these people are who are doing this. And greatness it's everywhere. It really is. We have an embarrassment of riches. So here we go. Are you ready? And I'm starting with Das Klagende Lied, and my choice is, if you can still find it, Michael Tilson Thomas and the San Francisco Symphony. First of all, he has a terrific lineup of soloists. I mean, who has he got here? It's let's see, Marina something and Michel de Jong and Thomas Moser and Sergei Liferkus. I mean, they're all very good. And I've got to, it's so annoying. I mean, I'm wearing my reading glasses here. And let's see, Marina Shaguch or something like that. I don't know. Why is it that they make like brown colored packaging and then teeny type to list the performers? I mean, I really need a magnifying glass to see this stuff. So I don't care. It's the Tilson Thomas Das Klagende Lied. And the reason is because he has a great chorus. It's a great orchestra. He's not as fussy and affected as he got in some of his later Mahler performances. It's an absolutely wonderful performance, splendidly recorded, and hopefully you can still find it. But if not, there are other fine ones out there. There's the Shai. There was, Haitink for the 2-movement version. There's other good ones. So it's not to worry. But Tilson Thomas. Now, Symphony No. 1. For Symphony No. 1, I chose a newbie, Manfred Honeck and the Pittsburgh Symphony. Why? Because Honeck is an absolutely fabulous conductor. He's an absolutely fabulous conductor. Pittsburgh is a magnificent orchestra with the greatest horn section in the universe, and you can hear it here. And this is on Exton, and it's a Japanese import. It's pricey, but wow, is it beautiful. Absolutely beautiful, full of character and personality, but freshness and liveliness, and it's just great. So that's Symphony No. 1, and there are a million versions of Symphony No. 1 that you could pick. And I'm not going to list them. Go see the video. If you want to see some more of the million versions and you want to see what my top recommendation was, it wasn't Honeck, but I could certainly live with it. I really could and have no problems at all. Symphony No. 2, this was my top recommendation, I believe, because I just think it's a great performance. Fischer, the Budapest Festival Orchestra, on Channel Classics. First of all, because I think Channel Classics does fabulous work and they deserve some support. And Fischer was doing great Mahler, but he's highly variable. He's had some real duds, too. He really has. But this second symphony is just a knockout. You have to crank it up, put it on, turn up the volume, and just wallow. It's absolutely amazing. A fabulous, fabulous performance. His third was great, too. So that's wonderful to have. Symphony No. 3. Now, of course, the logical choice and my preferred choice was Bernstein. Of course, the Bernstein, the first one with the New York Philharmonic, which is just amazing. Amazing. But again, there were other great performances, interpretations of a very different kind. And so I've chosen one of those. Haitink's first recording with the Concertgebouw. This is from the early Mahler cycle. See, remember that was the cool Philips box that it came in, this square thing. Remember that? You got who's the solo? The alto is Maureen Forrester, which is fabulous. Heather Harper is the soprano, you've got the Concertgebouw with their unbelievable wind section. It's amazingly well played, beautifully recorded, texturally transparent, and best of all, you have the most incredible final chord of the Adagio. I mean, the last movement, it is so beautiful. It's so beautiful. It's just to die for. And that's what you want in a Mahler third. You want a culminating Adagio that culminates. And this really culminates. It's on Decca now. It used to be on Philips, but now it's Decca, and it is glorious. Absolutely a glorious performance. So that's number 3. Number 4. Oh boy. 4 is a real toughie, and the reason it's difficult is because so many people have done it well, and so many people who don't normally do lots of Mahler. There was Reiner, there was Zell. I mean, historically, one of the great ones, again from Pittsburgh, was Andre Previn with Elie Ameling on EMI. I talk about all these in my talk of Mahler's Fourth, but I have selected for my fave Kubelik with, I think, Mrs. Kubelik. Is Mrs. Kubelik singing the finale, Elise Morrison? Or is it Edith Mathis? I have to check. Wait a minute. Let's see who does the last movement, because it's all just beautiful. The thing about Kubelik's Mahler, as I'm looking here, that's so marvelous, is his, sort of Czech. Yes, it's Elsie Morrison, Elsie Morrison, who was Mrs. Kubelik. Anyway, the thing that makes Kubelik's Mahler so lovely is that bohemian freshness. The emphasis on woodwind textures, the generally swift tempos, at least in this cycle. He did some later Mahler that was very, very slow. And I think that really, when you get right down to the Fourth Symphony, you want to hear lots of chamber music-y interplay, and you do hear. The performance just flows. It's like his First Symphony, which was my preferred version of the first, because it's just everything's in scale. It's beautifully in place, and you don't have to think about it as it goes. I mean, there's nothing that draws attention to itself as an affectation. It all has complete naturalness and freshness and vivacity. And at the finale, Mrs. Kubelik does a fabulous job with the song. It's nice and innocent and without any archness, a la Elizabeth Schwarzkopf, Mrs. Arch, in the Klemperer version. So anyway, Kubelik for number 4. Number 5 is also a newcomer, and this one I recommended. It was it's so weird, this disc. It was such a surprise. It's this thing. This is Marcus Stenz, and I think, yes, with the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra. Now, Stenz did this. He also did a Mahler too from Melbourne, and then he went to Germany and did a complete Mahler cycle very, very quickly on Ohm's record, I think in Cologne. And none of it was memorable, I don't think. It really wasn't. But this Mahler Fifth, Mahler 5 is the one that everyone messes up with. It's the hardest one to pull off, arguably, for a lot of reasons. It's very difficult to play. It's a bear for the strings and brass. It's Mahler's longest symphony in terms of bar length. Why? Because you've got this 18-minute scherzo and quick 3/4 in the middle, so you got a lot of bars. But this was one of those performances. It's a singleton performance where everyone was just at the top of their form, and it really mattered, and they did their best. And it's on this 1,000 years of classical music, the Romantic era, from ABC Classics, Australian Broadcasting. And it cost like $3 or something like that. I mean, it was such an unexpected joy. So Marcus Stenz, boy, did he just, he did such a great job here. I mean, I love the fact that they don't even really tell you who's playing, except this teeny, teeny, tiny print in the back. There they are. And it's just great. It's absolutely one of the great Mahler 5s ever. It's astonishing. Number 6. Number 6 is Gielan. Michael Gielan. Oh, Michael Gielan. Now, I could have picked either of the Bernsteins. There's Sanderling. There's Chailly. There's a bunch of great sixths out there. But, whoa. Gielan is as I keep saying, your ultimate, nihilism and everything is awful, end of the universe, nuclear apocalypse kind of guy. And this is an everything is awful, end of the universe, nuclear apocalypse kind of symphony. So if that's what you're looking for, Gillen is going to be your guy. He just loves going into all of the sort of grotty, underbelly of the work and bringing out all of its darkness and crepuscular elements. I love that word, crepuscular. It's a crepuscular performance. Fabulous. Absolutely fabulous. Wonderfully recorded. It'll knock your socks off. Absolutely. Amazing. Okay, number 7. Here's where I have no choice. I really have no choice. Again, it's a symphony that's had some very, very good performances lately, but I am choosing. I even took the booklet out of the box here so there's no glare. Bernstein, New York Phil, his first one. This is the piece that discovered Mahler's 7th. And there has really never been a performance greater. There just hasn't been. And I love it so much. This is my favorite. This is absolutely my favorite. I mean, there's one of those versions where I just have to say, this is my pick. It's so right in everything that Bernstein does. And again, it's another performance where if you have a score and you're following the performance, you're seeing, they talk about Bernstein as exaggerated and emotionally bad and all this. That's all bullshit. He's so dedicated to exactly what Mahler wants and realizing that amazing sound world that Mahler creates in this piece. And what's particularly wonderful, he gets the tempos absolutely right in the first Nachtmusik and the second Nachtmusik, because most people take them too quickly or too slowly. But here, it can't be any other way. When you listen to this performance, this is Mahler's 7th. And in the finale with the cowbells and the bells and the stuff, there's no shame whatsoever. And that's how you have to play it, shamelessly. So Bernstein for Mahler 7 on Sony. It's such a great performance. It really is. And if it doesn't make you love the work, probably nothing will. Despite the fact that there are other fine versions, that tells you what the music is. And that's the point. Okay, Mahler 8. This was also my choice in my Mahler 8 talk, but there are a few good ones out there. There's Schulte, there's Bertini, which is amazing. But I chose Anthony Witt on Naxos. I'm standing by this one because it's so well done. Witt is such a great conductor of big works for chorus and orchestra. And this is one of those performances where he just got millions of singers and a big orchestra and stuck them in a nice big room with a decent organ and good engineering, and they just let it rip. And it does. He's got perfectly wonderful Polish soloists. It's a terrific, terrific performance. And, Mahler 8 is a piece that so many people get wrong. So many people get it wrong. They do terribly by it. And it's a miracle that Witt does this so beautifully. I mean, it's not a miracle for Witt because this is what he does, but it's just a miracle that everything goes right when it goes wrong elsewhere so many times. Next, since we're basically going chronologically, we come to Das Lied von der Erde. And, oh gosh, there are so many good Das Lied von der Erdes out there now. Wow, that's a toughie. But I'm going to go with the traditional pick here, too. Klemperer with the New Philharmonia and somewhat the Philharmonia. I think it was both of them, yes, because he recorded it over a long period. And the Philharmonia was disbanded and became the New Philharmonia shortly thereafter. This I picked not just because of Klemperer. I picked it because of the singers. Really, Christa Ludwig and Fritz Wunderlich. It has never been better sung. And this time I'm going for the singing, just for the singing. There are other performances I like for more, I think, keenly observed orchestral detail or a livelier tempo in the drinking song of Earth's Misery at the start. But Klemperer is pretty wonderful. And those wailing woodwinds in the Funeral March interlude in Abschied, ooh, that's serious, serious stuff. And the young Christa Ludwig is just incredible. And Fritz Wunderlich is Fritz Wunderlich. And, you got to hear the tenor songs sung by Fritz Wunderlich so you know what they sound like and you can be dissatisfied with everybody else. So, Klemperer on EMI Warner. Now, number 9. Oh, number 9. Another symphony that tends to bring out the best in most of the people who do it. and there are a lot of great ones. But I have chosen maybe a little controversial. I don't know. But you got to just, it's Carion's live one. This is the Carion Gold Edition or whatever it was. It's been remastered. It sounds great. It really does. This is one of those performances. Again, Carion did it, a studio version that had the famous E-flat clarinet getting lost in the rondo burlesque, and he slows down to let everyone else catch up. It's kind of fun. And they left it in. You can still hear it all go wrong for a minute. But what really gets me about this performance is just how intense and exciting and almost un-Carion-like it is in some ways. It has the climax of the first movement with the tam-tam. Holy mackerel. It's just crushing. My God, they go for it. Not the kind of thing you often expect from Carion. He doesn't smooth over the rough edges at all. The rondo burlesque, it snaps, it snarls, it goes like a dervish towards the end. In the stretto, when it speeds up, it's marvelously done. Absolutely. And the string playing, of course, is incredible. The climax of the Adagio, the finale, is so intense. You can hear the rosin catching fire on their bows. They're pressing so hard. It's the kind of live performance that you want. It has spontaneity. It has intensity. And I think, frankly, people who basically crap on this performance because it's Carion haven't really listened. I can't believe they've really listened to it. I really can't, because if you do, you have to acknowledge its virtues. You just have to. It doesn't have to be your favorite performance. There are certain things Carion does, I think, that other people could do better and do better. For example, the collapse in the first movement, Carion beats the tempo steadily. So it's, da 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 bum ba da dum ba dum ba dum ba dum ba dum ba da 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 crash. The crash is great. Getting there, other people do more of a dum ba dum ba dum ba dum ba da 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 boom. It's an accelerando, things like that. There's stuff that Carion does that you may disagree with, but the excellence of the performance is nowhere in doubt. So I would be remiss as a critic, as a professional, if I didn't acknowledge the greatness of this performance. And I happen to love it too, which is a bonus. And, I just have to make this point because I do regularly. I know when we have the commentators and I ask you for your lists, what you're going to tell me is either what's sitting around in your collection and you haven't heard the others, or you have heard the others and these are just the ones you prefer. And that's absolutely fine. I think that's great. And that's exactly what you should do. But as a professional critic, one of the differences between what I do and what you do is that it's my job to recognize excellence wherever I find it, whether or not I like it, and just admit that it is what it is. There are musical facts that we have to acknowledge. And one of those facts is that this is a great Mahler Ninth, both in terms of its observance of Mahler's markings in the score, in terms of the way it's played, in terms of the realization of Carion's conception of what Mahler wrote. It ticks all the boxes. It just does. So whether you like it or not is completely irrelevant. And I think it's a good thing, quite frankly, to get into the habit of recognizing excellence wherever you hear it, and not just saying, well, I don't like it because of this detail or that detail. There's more out there that's more important than just, whether you like this particular moment. And think outside the box a little bit. Step outside yourself a little bit sometimes, especially with Mahler, because, the thing about the Mahler symphonies is that they are so much bigger than any one performance. We say that about everything classical, don't we? We say that about Beethoven. We say it about Mozart. And it's true. But it's true in a very special way with Mahler, because the Mahler symphonies are so big and so complex. And there are so many moments that you can hit in a performance, and we all have them. We all know what they are, right? So we really need to be open to all of the possibilities that the music encompasses, and they are truly limitless. I mean, that's why we have so many great Mahler performances out there today. So, Carry-On for Mahler 9. I also did 10. You'll be proud of me because, as you know, I don't believe in Mahler 10. I believe in the Adagio, the Purgatorio, maybe, but completions, blah, no. But I've picked one. I've picked my favorite one. Sanderling, Kurt Sanderling with the Berlin Symphony Orchestra on Berlin Classics. It is a great, great, great realization of this incomplete score, and I will say no more. Sanderling is your man. Gielan also did a very good one. There are some other good ones, but Sanderling. All right, now we have to do the major song cycles. And as far as the song cycles go, to preserve our sanity, for Kindertotenlieder, Rückertlieder, and Songs of a Wayfarer, I'm doing them all on a single disc because I'm just not going to do each song cycle separately. I might still do talks on some of them. Who knows? I'll put that in abeyance. But for a complete disc that has all three of them, Janet Baker and Barbaroli. Where is it going to get better than that? Seriously. Baker is amazing. Barbaroli was a great Mahlerian. Even the Halle Orchestra, which plays in a couple of these, doesn't sound too horrible. I mean, they sound good, actually. It's beautifully done. And what else is there to say? This is for your single disc. If you're having only one of the three great song cycles, this is the way to go. And finally, Das Knaben Wunderhorn. Now, there are three or four maybe, great Das Knaben Wunderhorns that you could consider. There is the Bernstein, which is amazing, but I've already used Bernstein. There is Gielan's, but I've already used Gielan's. There is Macaris, who is absolutely fabulous. That was on Virgin, though, and I'm not sure where it is now or if it's available, so I didn't want to go too far into that, but Macaris is absolutely great. However, to wrap it all up and end this fabulous survey of the ideal Mahler cycle, I chose Shai. Boy, is this hot. This is one of the best things Shai ever did in Mahler. It is amazing. What makes it so amazing is that he's using all of the original keys with original voice types. So you've got Barbara Bonney, Sarah Fulgoni, Gustav Winberg, and Matthias Görner doing the songs, and he has them all in their original scorings. You get the original version of the finale of the Fourth Symphony, which has like different scoring in places. Das Himmlische Leben, the heavenly life, which contrasts with Das Irdische Leben, the earthly life. They were originally conceived as a pair. And the Concertgebouw plays fabulously, and the sound is great, and the conducting is amazing, and it's just, wow, baby. You can't do better than this in Das Knaben Wunderhorn. You just can't. I think it also has Ehrlich. Yes, you get Ehrlich from the Second Symphony. It's the most complete, and just there isn't a weak link anywhere in it, just as there isn't a weak link anywhere in this list of the ideal Mahler cycle. And this brings it to a conclusion with Das Knaben Wunderhorn. Gosh, don't you love those songs? Aren't they just amazing? Absolutely amazing. Okay, so there we have it. Now, where do we go from here as Mahlerians, as from the planet Malaria, if you want to call it that way, since we've been doing intergalactic series of discussions here, mostly with British composers. Listen. We'll talk tachlis to wind it up. As I said, Mahler is ubiquitous these days. You want to hear performances that do not sound like everyday stuff. There was a time, and a lot of us will remember it, when Mahler symphonies were really special, when everyone flocked to hear them because they were unusual, and to play them was an event, truly an event. And the performances sounded like events. And I really think that one of the reasons there's so much lousy Mahler, just like there's so much lousy Bruckner and everything out there, is because everybody does it now. And, you can do it lazily. And there is nothing, I mean nothing more horrible than a lazy Mahler performance. I mean, lazy performances of anything are bad. But Mahler has so much to be excited about. so many things that you should just listen to it and go, whoa, wow, woo, boy, I never heard anything like that before. And there are just so many versions of them that are ordinary. It's lethal. They kill the music with ordinariness. Blah, ugh, oh God. You just want to strangle some of these people. And these are all performances that will let you hear Mahler as an event, the event that it should be. And that's what I think we need to listen for. We want to hear an event. So keep on listening, folks. Thank you for joining me with this ideal Mahler cycle. Oh gosh, that was fun.